I ditched life goals after witnessing a shocking reality. Every now and then, life hands us a moment so profound that it shakes us to our very core. For me, that moment came unexpectedly one sunny afternoon in Portugal, and it altered the trajectory of my life forever. Until then, I had been navigating my later years with the same mindset I'd had for decades, setting goals, chasing achievements, and filling my days with busyness. But witnessing one stark reality made me abandon my life goals altogether, and it was the best decision I ever made. Let me share what happened and, more importantly, what I learned. My hope is that my story will resonate with you, inspire you, and help you rethink how you want to spend the time you have left because, as I learned, time is far more fragile than we often realize. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The shocking reality that changed everything. Life is a way of sneaking up on us with moments that redefine everything we think we know about it. For me, one such moment came unexpectedly on a sunlit afternoon in Portugal, and it was as though the world had conspired to deliver a message I could not ignore. It wasn't a quiet epiphany or a gentle realization, no, it was a sharp, jarring encounter with the undeniable fragility of existence. I had been enjoying the serenity of a holiday, one of those rare times when the demands of daily life fade into the background. My wife and I had made this annual trip to Portugal a tradition, a time to reset, reflect, and enjoy the beauty of the coast. The mornings were calm, the afternoons warm, and the evenings filled with the soft chatter of waves meeting the shore. But this particular afternoon, the tranquility shattered. It started with a noise, a strange, almost rhythmic grunting sound coming from the villa next door. At first, I thought little of it. Maybe someone was exercising, or perhaps they were struggling with luggage or furniture. But something about the tone made me pause. I leaned over the balcony railing and caught a glimpse of my neighbor. He wasn't much older than me, a familiar face I'd greeted countless times during our overlapping vacations. But what I saw wasn't a man at ease or in control. He was collapsed, clutching his chest, his face contorted in pain. He wasn't much older than me, a familiar face I'd greeted countless times during our overlapping vacations. But what I saw wasn't a man at ease or in control. He was collapsed, clutching his chest, his face contorted in pain. In those seconds, time seemed to warp. His wife's frantic cries filled the air, followed by the arrival of paramedics. They worked with practiced urgency, applying defibrillators, performing compressions, and speaking in tones both hurried and hopeful. But no amount of effort could change the outcome. I watched helplessly as life left that man, as though a light had been extinguished in broad daylight. It was the first time I had witnessed a death so immediate, so visceral, outside the sanitized walls of a hospital. There was no curtain to shield the reality, no time to prepare for the shock of it. I'd seen my own father pass years earlier, but that had been different, a slow, somber goodbye in the presence of family. This was abrupt, raw, and terrifying in its finality. As I sat there in stunned silence, a realization began to crystallize within me, that could have been me. There was no escaping the truth of it, a twist of fate, a genetic predisposition, or even a moment of stress could have easily placed me in his shoes. And yet, until that day, I had never really thought about the hour of my death. Like many people, I had carried on assuming there was always more time to achieve, to plan, to put things off. But watching him pass away under the same sunlit sky where I sat made me confront a truth I could no longer ignore. The fragility of life is something we all understand intellectually, but witnessing it is different. It strips away the pretense, the excuses, and the comfortable delusion of someday. It makes you ask questions you'd rather not face. If that were me, what would I leave behind? Have I spent my time wisely? Have I lived the way I truly want to live? For weeks after returning home, I couldn't shake the weight of that experience. I thought about that man's wife, about how quickly her life had changed. I thought about the plans he might have had, the vacations, the dreams, the conversations he assumed he'd have tomorrow. And most of all, I thought about the parallels between us. He wasn't a stranger, he was a reflection of me, of all of us who are living in the unspoken belief that we'll have more time. That moment was more than a wake-up call, it was a reckoning. It forced me to sit down and confront the direction of my own life. I was 63, on the cusp of what I like to call a new chapter, and yet I realized I was drifting. I had spent years chasing goals, ticking off accomplishments, and accumulating knowledge, but I wasn't truly living. Witnessing his death wasn't just a reminder of mortality, it was an invitation to reevaluate what really matters before it's too late. I didn't know that man well, but in many ways, he gave me a gift. His passing was a mirror, reflecting the urgency of living fully in the time we have left. It's a moment I'll carry with me for the rest of my days, not as a source of fear, but as a compass guiding me toward a more meaningful life. And I hope that sharing this story with you will inspire the same reflection, the same call to action, before the reality of time slips through your fingers. The weeks following my return home marked a shift, not just in my mindset, but in how I approached each day. I began taking stock of my life, not in terms of achievements or possessions, but in terms of connections, purpose, and joy. What really mattered? What would I want to leave behind if my time came unexpectedly? I started small. Each morning, instead of diving into my usual routine, I sat quietly with a cup of coffee and simply watched the sunrise. It measuring my days by how much I accomplished and started focusing on how much I experienced. This new perspective changed everything. I began saying yes to moments of connection, spending more time with my wife, catching up with old friends, and embracing conversations that lingered late into the night. I made room for laughter, vulnerability, and the simple joy of being with the people I care about. At the same time, I said no to things that drained me. I scaled back on work commitments that didn't bring fulfillment and let go of possessions that tied me down. Downsizing wasn't just about creating physical space, it was about making room emotionally and mentally for the things that truly mattered. The shift also inspired me to focus on my health, not out of fear but out of respect for the life I still had to live. I started walking every day, not with a goal of reaching a certain distance, but to feel my body move, breathe deeply, and enjoy the rhythm of life around me. This new way of living wasn't perfect, nor was it always easy. There were moments of doubt, times when I felt tempted to fall back into old habits of chasing goals or seeking validation through busyness. But every time I remembered that day in Portugal, the fragility of life would come rushing back, and I'd refocus on what truly mattered. And so, my life became less about ticking off milestones and more about embracing each moment as it came. Letting go of traditional goals didn't mean giving up, it meant freeing myself to live more fully. Today, I feel lighter, freer, and more connected to the world around me. My days are no longer driven by the pressure to achieve, but by the desire to experience, to love, and to simply be. If there's one thing I've learned through this journey, it's that life isn't about how much you do, but how deeply you live. So, as you go forward, I encourage you to ask yourself the same questions that changed my path. What truly matters to you? How do you want to spend the time you have left? And are you living in a way that reflects the answers to those questions? It's never too late to make a change. Remember, life is fragile, but it's also beautiful, and every moment is an opportunity to embrace it fully. As I reflect on this journey, one thing stands out above all else: the importance of being intentional with the time we have. It's not about cramming more into our days, but about savoring the moments that truly matter. That's why I started sharing my story. Whether through conversations with friends, heartfelt letters to my grandchildren, or the videos I post online, I've found a sense of fulfillment in connecting with others who might be walking a similar path. The YouTube channel I created became more than just a hobby, it became a purpose. It allowed me to share lessons from my life, stories of resilience, and moments of clarity that might inspire others to live with intention. I found that my experiences, no matter how personal, often resonated with people from all walks of life. The comments I receive on those videos often leave me in awe. Strangers telling me how a simple story of mine helped them rethink their priorities, reconcile with a loved one, or take the first step towards simplifying their lives. It's humbling. It reminds me that even in sharing, we grow, heal, and find deeper meaning. Of course, this journey isn't a straight line. There are still days when I get caught up in old habits or feel the pull of external expectations. But now, I have a compass, a reminder to slow down, breathe, and return to what really matters. I've learned that living without rigid goals doesn't mean living without direction. It means allowing life to guide you gently, being open to where it leads, and finding joy in the unexpected. So, as I move forward, I carry with me a new philosophy. Life isn't about racing toward the finish line, it's about appreciating the journey, step by step, moment by moment. I hope you'll join me in embracing this mindset. Together, we can create a life that's not just lived, but truly cherished. And if you ever find yourself questioning your own path, remember, it's never too late to pause, reflect, and choose a different way forward. After all, the best chapters of our lives are often the ones we write with our hearts wide open. Milestones. It was about creating something meaningful, something that allowed me to share my experiences and connect with others navigating the same stage of life. Anti-G goals have taught me something profound. When you focus on what you don't want, you create space for what you truly value. By letting go of the constant need to strive, I found a sense of peace and purpose that had eluded me for years. I've learned to embrace the present moment, to savor the small joys, and to live in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling. I think we often cling to goals because they give us a sense of control, a belief that we can shape our lives and futures through sheer determination. But life, as I learned so vividly that day in Portugal, doesn't always follow our plans. It's unpredictable, fleeting, and often beyond our control. And while goals can help us navigate the journey, they shouldn't overshadow the journey itself. Letting go of life goals doesn't mean abandoning ambition or settling for less. It means redefining what ambition looks like in this chapter of life. It means focusing on what truly matters: relationships, experiences, and the simple act of being present. It means recognizing that our worth isn't measured by what we achieve, but by how we live and the impact we have on those around us. As I reflect on this shift, I feel a deep sense of gratitude. Letting go of traditional goals has allowed me to see life in a new light. It's not about reaching a destination, but about finding joy and meaning along the way. And if I've learned anything, it's that this perspective isn't just freeing, it's transformative. It's a reminder that no matter where we are in life, we have the power to choose how we spend the time we've been given. And that choice, more than any goal, is what defines a life well lived. Living with intention in the final chapters, as I sat on that quiet beach in Portugal, reflecting on the life I had lived and the life I still had ahead of me, a profound question surfaced. What would I write in the remaining chapters of my life? I've always seen life as a book, each chapter lasting about 7 years, a natural rhythm that marks transitions and transformations. At 63, I was standing at the threshold of a new chapter, but for the first time, I wasn't looking forward with the same sense of certainty I once had. Instead, I was acutely aware of how few chapters might remain. When we're young, it's easy to imagine that we have an endless number of pages to fill. We live as though the story will go on forever, rarely stopping to think about how much time is left to tell it. But as we age, the chapters seem to grow shorter, and the weight of unwritten pages becomes impossible to ignore. I found myself wondering, if my life ended tomorrow, would I be proud of the story I've told? Or would I regret the chapters one left unfinished, the experiences I never embraced, and the opportunities one allowed to slip away? This realization wasn't just sobering, it was galvanizing. It reminded me that living with intention is not just an ideal, it is a necessity. The time ahead may be uncertain, but it is also precious. Every day, every moment, every decision matters. And how we choose to spend this time defines the legacy we leave behind. For me, living with intention began with a shift in perspective. I stopped measuring my life by what I could accomplish and started focusing on how I could experience it. I asked myself, what truly brings me joy? What gives my life meaning? What will I look back on with gratitude, knowing I lived fully and authentically? The answers weren't grand or complicated, they were simple, deeply personal truths that had been waiting for me to notice them. I realized that the moments I cherished most were not tied to achievements or milestones but to connections, with my wife, my son, my friends, and even the strangers whose lives had intersected with mine in unexpected ways. These moments were about presence, not productivity. One of the first steps I took was to simplify my life. I had spent decades accumulating possessions, responsibilities, and often unnecessary stress. But as I moved into this new chapter, I realized that the things I owned were beginning to own me. So I began the process of letting go. I downsized my belongings, focusing on what truly mattered and discarding the rest. With each item I gave away, I felt a little lighter, a little freer, and a little more in tune with what I wanted this chapter to be about. Living with intention also meant prioritizing relationships. My son, who lives in London, became a central figure in my plans. I made a commitment to visit him often, to share holidays, and to create memories together. I realized that no amount of material wealth could replace the richness of these moments, whether it's a shared laugh over dinner, a walk through a new city, or simply the comfort of knowing we are present in each other's lives. These experiences have become the heart of my story. Travel has also taken on a new meaning for me. It's no longer about checking destinations off a list, but about savoring the quiet beauty of the world. I've learned to avoid the crowds and find the serene, empty beaches or the hidden corners of a city where life feels unhurried. These moments of stillness remind me of the vastness of the world and the small but meaningful place I occupy within it. But perhaps the most significant change has been learning to embrace uncertainty. In the past, I would meticulously plan every step of my journey, clinging to the illusion of control. Now, I've come to see life's unpredictability as a gift. It has taught me to let go of rigid expectations and to approach each day with curiosity and gratitude. I no longer need to know exactly how the story will unfold, I just need to be present for it. Living with intention doesn't mean striving for perfection. It means being deliberate about what you allow into your life and what you choose to let go of. It means recognizing that the chapters ahead are not endless and that each one deserves to be written with care, authenticity, and love. It means understanding that the best stories are not always the most dramatic or ambitious, but the ones that reflect who we truly are and what we hold dear. As I reflect on this new chapter of my life, I feel a deep sense of peace. I know that I cannot change the chapters I've already written, but I can choose how I live the ones that remain. I can fill them with laughter, connection, exploration, and a deep appreciation for the beauty of the world around me. And when the final page is written, I hope it will be a story not of regret but of a life lived fully and intentionally. This is the gift of growing older, the chance to look back with wisdom and look forward with clarity. It's a reminder that no matter how many chapters we have left, we can always choose to live them well. And in doing so, we ensure that the legacy we leave is one of meaning, love, and purpose.